multicellular organisms require a sophisticated, closed cardiovascular system, vascular system. Now, if you can just come to the circulation side of things, why is that? If you think about it. So once again, human beings have a very developed, you must have studied it in A levels and FSC and metric, and even before that, that we have arteries and veins and capillaries and all those sort of things. They form the entire circulation, right? Why do we have that circulation? Why can't we be cockroaches? Life would be simple, right? It would just throw the white stuff around. You know, the blood of cockroaches is white. Some humans unfortunately have white blood as well. This can be said very nicely in Urdu, but I won't. You know what I'm saying. We have a sophisticated, closed, very intricate circulatory system. Why is that? Think about it. It all comes to distance. What is this distance bit? So the vasculature is situated in a way that it is optimally close to the nearest tissue. Obviously, in the middle you have the interstitium. By what I mean by optimal, the distance of a feeding artery to its target tissue, the one that would take nutrients and oxygen from this artery and give the metabolic waste back to it so that it's taken away. This is the tissue, this is the vessel. The distance between these two is optimal, and it's constant, and it should be constant. Any derangement in this system, so for example, if fluid comes and gets in between the interstitium, you have all sorts of problems. There is a small stat. You know, oxygen. Oxygen is required by all the tissues, right? It comes from your artery. And this is the tissue. Tissue requires oxygen. The supplier is the nearest vessel. Now check out the distance issue here. Why you need a sophisticated, developed, far-reaching circulatory system is when oxygen molecule comes in the blood, tissues cannot go and pull it. There are no active processes by which oxygen can be sucked into the tissue. You know, it's the good old diffusion process that causes oxygen from a higher gradient, higher level. There's more oxygen here, and this is obviously using up oxygen, so you will always have a relative lesser oxygen in the tissue because it's using it constantly. So there is a gradient that forms, and oxygen will always favor from higher to lower gradient. You have studied this in physics all your life, okay? Now, you know that one of the factors of that affect diffusion is distance. The distance that this molecule is required to traverse. If you make it shorter, diffusion is more. If you make it longer, it affects diffusion in a bad way. So the molecule requires more time to diffuse very quickly. Most of the distance, this is fascinating really, they looked this up as well. The distance between tissue, the optimal distance between the tissue and the nearest vessel is in micrometers. Okay, I have these stats here. It takes about, the optimal distance about within 100 micrometers. It takes about 5 seconds for oxygen to go from the vessel into the tissue. 5 seconds, still 5 seconds, right? If you were to increase this 100 micrometers into 1000 micrometers, that is 1 millimeter. What is 1 milliliter? 1 millimeter. If you can look at the scale, it's a very small, minuscule distance. So you increase from 100 micrometer to 1000 micrometers, which still is very small, which is a 1 millimeter. You know the time now required for oxygen, the same oxygen molecule, to go from the vessel to the tissue increases up to from 5 seconds to 500 seconds, which is about 8.3 minutes. 8.3 minutes, while it was just 5 seconds when you had the optimal distance. And if you were to, just for argument's sake, increase this distance between the tissue and the vessel to 1 centimeter. 1 centimeter also is a very small distance, right? It's bigger than 1 millimeter. So if you just change the 1 millimeter into 1 centimeter, it will require 50,000 seconds for this oxygen molecule to hit the tissue, which is about 14 hours. So this is why you need a very specific, far-reaching, sophisticated system, circulatory system, so that all the tissues are within reach of the vessels.